G'day guys, in this video I'm going to go through just a DIY sort of homemade little switch panel you can do. Takes up the center console storage space, but you can have up to 6 switches in there instead. What I'm going to do is make up a switch panel out of a 3mm plastic sheet, and then I'm going to insert it into the center console using the tension in the bend and maybe a little bit of Velcro or blue tack or whatever you want to use. You can glue it in there full time if you want, but I'm going to use something where I can actually pull the switch panel in and out. So the reason I'm making this up is because the BT-50 seems to have almost no desirable switch panels from third-party manufacturers and stuff like that. So I've just gone down to Bunnings, bought a 3mm sheet of 1200 by 900 plastic. The good thing about this is you can have heaps that goes at it, keep stuffing it up. You can probably get about 30 or 40 of these out of that one sheet. The sheet costs about $49, and that is the only cost. Obviously you have to buy switches separately to fill it, and you'll need some hand tools. So the reason I'm putting this in is because although there are some good wireless switching units on the market, they are simply on-off switches. As far as I can tell, there are no two-way switches available. Because I plan on having two-way switches for the right-hand side, the left-hand side, the reverse light. I want to have a winch in and out, maybe a winch isolator, a light bar. There's heaps of things I want to put on here, but they're not all single pole, single throw switches. I need some single pole, double throw switches and momentary on-off switches. So that's why I'm using this instead of using a wireless switching unit. Need some measuring tools, a heat gun or a gas torch for heating it up to bend it. So you will need a knife to cut out these switch recesses. You can use some form of shears or snips or something to cut out the long straight edges, or you can just go through everything with the knife. You need a file to clean up all the edges and maybe some paint if you want to give it a touch up at the end. So this is basically it at the moment. This is just a template to get the initial measurements, and then we'll work off that. Obviously I'm going to tidy everything up, but all it is a long edge on top, a short edge on the bottom, and then you cut out as many switch panels as you want. You can fit up to 6 for the BT-50. Top edge is just a fold, and that is to give me somewhere to stick Velcro to, or blue tack, or whatever I decide to use. Something that I can pull the switch panel in and out to work on the back or fix any issues. If you want to tidy this up, you can paint it, you can file all the edges, but because this is just a template, we'll go through all that on the finished product. I'll show you roughly what we're going for. So that is basically what the final product will look like. I'm just going to adjust the widths on top and maybe the point at which I make the bend so there's a bit less pressure. It's actually quite sturdy. Where it is, I could almost fit that off with nothing inside it. Time for prototype 2. So here is template number 2. Now the reason I'm cutting all of these out is because it's easier to cut these flat before that bend is in there. Once the bend's in there, depending on how good you get your bend, it might not sit flat on your table. So I'm going to cut these out. That is the most time consuming process. Just go through with a knife, score it, very firm pressure so the knife doesn't slip outside of these boundaries. So where I have it at the moment, the gaps in between here are 7mm. I've done 22mm wide for the switches, about 36 or 37mm high. I just ran 2 lines straight across in pen, and then I did all my verticals. Now to do that, just take the total width of the bottom of your switches, add up 22 times however many switches you want, take that off that total width, and that will leave you with the amount of space that you'd have left over, and then divide that by how many spaces there are. Because we have 6 switches, 7 spaces, it worked out to about 7.4mm, so I just did 7mm gaps in between each one, just to maintain an even spacing. Now I'll try pop all these out. Once you have the scores appearing on the back, I recommend going through on the back, and don't try and force these out. This plastic will crack. You want these knife marks to basically be all the way through before you push it out, and that way you'll get it nice and clean. Any touch-up work, you just file it. Just be careful not to snap these 7mm barriers by filing too aggressively. If you haven't nicked these, it shouldn't be an issue, but if you accidentally nicked one of these, then that could possibly break it. So I'm going to continue popping these out. I've made this a little bit larger than I needed to because I can always cut it back, but you can't add to it. So I'll bend this afterwards, see how it fits, put the switches in, and I'll see if I can add a Velcro strip or something here that just connects it and holds it in place, even though the pressure should hold it in place pretty well anyway. There is a plastic cover on this that you can peel off. So I've just heated it up. I recommend using a heat gun because it's a bit of a slower process. You'll start to feel when it wants to bend. And then I've just got it in between two bits of timber with another bit of timber to make the bend straight. Once you get it hot enough, it'll start to bend really easily. And then you just want to let it cool in the position that you want it to take its form in. So with the bending of this, I recommend using a heat gun, and you'll feel it go wobbly. And as soon as that happens, you just slowly bend it into position, hold it there for 30 seconds or so. And then as it cools, it'll set in its new position. I actually bent it in the vise, and then after that, I put it in position. It kind of wants to bend back to its original shape, but not too much. So it just gets to where it hits the plastic around here, and then it sets. And that's why it's a really nice tight fit there. It's not actually going anywhere. Don't need Velcro, blue tack or anything like that. But if you wanted to do something, you could just stick something along this top lip. That was the point of it. So here is the final product. There's a lip on top here where I was going to add a Velcro strip that stuck to a Velcro strip on the inside here. But this is such a tight fit, I'm actually leaning towards just leaving it like this. It's actually as far back as it'll go, and it only moves about 3mm forward. So there's not really any wiggle room there. Once I put the switches in, it'll be even more rigid because that'll give it a little bit of structure. That's essentially it. That's the whole job done. I've just got to fill this with switches now, and then we'll weigh it, and it's 1 hour's work, and it's a pretty good little modification that you can do. Drill some holes through here when I get the switches running. Now the good thing about this space is I can actually have relays and stuff mounted behind there out of the weather, so they don't need to be IP rated, and I can have a little relay station behind my switch panel, and it'll just be a good place to access anything electrical that I need to work on. So I fitted in 4 switches that I know I want to use, which is a right hand side floodlight, reverse floodlight, left hand side floodlight, and a winch controller. The far left and the far right are just empties at the moment. I don't have anything assigned or any future plans for them, but I'll put them in now anyway because it looks better. So all of this, all we're adding is 177 grams to the car, and that's for a nice switch panel. I haven't had to paint it at all. Once you peel the plastic covering off and fill it with switches, it actually has quite a decent finish anyway. So we've got 175mm across the bottom, 200mm across the top. The switch cutouts are 22mm across and about 37mm high. And my bend starts at 90 and finishes at about 95. It takes up about 5mm for the bend to complete, and it is just off 90 degrees, so it puts a little bit of pressure on the top of the center console. I got it on the second attempt, but the sheets that you buy from Bunnings are massive, so you could probably have 30 goes at this and still have some leftover sheet. Alright, that's it. 177 grams and about $49. The measurements are all there for you. You might be able to find a small sheet somewhere else, so you won't have as much wastage and possibly a lower cost than even I had. So I'm pretty happy with the way that looks. Once you peel off that plastic sheet, it's a nice clean finish. It almost looks like the original trim. The 3mm thickness is perfect for these switches to hold themselves in there, and it is just wide enough to fit 6 switches with a decent enough space in between. Any tidying up you have to do, you can easily file things to shape to get your switches sitting exactly where you want them. And if for some reason your bit of plastic is scratched, you can just go over it with a bit of paint. So $49 for that sheet. All of those switches that I put in, I already owned, except for the winch, which is a momentary on switch, with off being the normal position in the middle. So the only things we've bought for this job is that winch switch and the plastic sheet itself. Now every car has different shaped recesses, but this method will probably work for almost all of them. If you don't have a recess that can hold its own tension, then all you need to do is have some tabs that you bend over, attach a sticky back Velcro strip to one side and the other side to the actual console itself, and then you've got your own switch panel. Nice easy job. Thanks for watching. G'day guys, this video is gonna whoop. So switches of math. You're probably cutting out the actual, you can use some, or you can just go through a knife with everything. Or any type of stick. So the only thing to do is have some bend